In today's video, we are going to be sharing with you our favorite budgeting method, how to budget for an entire year at once.
Hey guys, it's Joseph.
And Tasha with One Big Happy Life.
We make videos about how to find balance, build wealth, and live happy. So if you want more videos on how to create a life that you really love, this is the place to be.
So one of the ways that you create a life you love is by having enough money to afford the life that you want. And that starts with having a budget that actually works.
And here we are going to talk about how to budget for an entire year. Step by step, everybody can do it. Grab a pencil, you might want to take notes.
Now, the first thing that we want to do is direct you to our website, onebighappylife.com/budget, because we have a free budget template that you can download to help you get started with this. Then we're going to talk about why budgeting for a year at a time is so important. And the reason is that when you budget just for a week or per paycheck or a month, that's short-term budgeting. It doesn't allow you to plan for your long-term financial goals and really visualize those goals in the same way that having a year-long budget and eventually, like we have, a 5-year budget, and we'll drop a link to that in the description box so you can check it out. We have so many subscribers that have emailed us, messaged us on Instagram saying that budgeting for a year at a time has changed their life, and it can change yours too. So let's get into how to make this actually happen.
Step number 1 is to calculate your income from all sources. So that's side hustles, that's your main job, everything. And at this point, you're also going to decide whether or not you're going to budget with your net income, so like after taxes, retirement, health insurance, or gross income, which is just your gross pay before anything is taken out for taxes and anything. Now, we always use net income because for us, our withholding doesn't change throughout the year, and so there's no real reason to track what is coming out. It's the same all the time.
Now that you know what your income is, let's talk about how to make that work for a 12-month budget. Because you may not get paid once a month. You might get paid once a week, every other week, twice a month, or once a year. I don't know. So this is how these are the options that you have for making your income fit into a 12-month budget. So number 1, you can calculate what your annual net income is, like the total amount, and just divide that by 12 and put that into each month's income category. The downside to that is that you may end up with a shortage because you haven't earned that money yet. So another option is if you get paid twice a month, then you use 2 paychecks. If you get paid weekly, then you use 4 paychecks. And so what that does is you're budgeting for less money than you actually earn within that month period. And so you plug in those extra paychecks where they would fall in the calendar. So if you look at our budget, you can see Joseph and I have our paychecks here on 3 because we are full-time attorneys. So that's where that is, this column right here. But then we get paid every other week. And so we have our extra paychecks, the 2 extra paychecks built in right here. So we know in May, we're basically gonna get 3 paychecks. And in October, we're gonna get 3 paychecks because that's the way the calendar shakes out.
We also include a line item for our One Big Happy Life business, and it is after expenses and taxes. And we don't always know exactly how much we're going to make from month to month, so we budget with the minimum that we expect to have because it is much better to under budget than over budget your income.
All right, so next up on our budget, you'll see the next category is savings, but we're gonna skip past that. When you're creating your budget for the first time, you're not gonna stick your savings in right away. You're gonna focus on your expenses. So that's where we are. Step 2, calculate your expenses.
So you're going to pull together all of your bills that you get every single month, things that come once a year, everything together. That's utilities, mortgage, credit cards, whatever it is, get it all together and write it down.
Yeah, and you might want to, like Joseph said, actually just write it down on a piece of paper because this is one of those things where you might keep remembering different things. And so it's better to have that list so that when you start plugging the items in and categorizing them in your Excel spreadsheet, that you're not having to constantly go back and cut and copy and paste. You already had the list.
Yeah, and you will constantly remember things as you go along, and that's completely okay. Just plug them in because people forget lots of things, like doctors' copays and things like that, that rarely happen, but they do exist. So watch out.
So one of the things that we recommend when you are jotting down your expenses, focus on your mandatory must pay these, whether it's every month or, twice a year or whatever, those expenses, and put down the minimum payments, because we want to see what your total budget surplus is. That is step 3, and we're going to get to that. But then once you have your budget surplus, then you can decide where you want to put that extra money. But just start with reasonable minimum expenses on things like your groceries, your daycare, your credit card expenses, all of that stuff. And you can see the categories that we have under household and lifestyle, except for fun monies and vacations. Those are optional. Those are things that we add afterwards.
Step number 3 is to calculate your monthly budget surplus. Take all of your income, subtract all of those expenses, and see what you get. Hopefully, it is a positive number. If it's a negative number, then that is a sign that you might have some serious financial trouble if it keeps going that way, because that means you're going to be racking up debt to pay your regular expenses. So double check those expenses, see if there's something you can cut, make sure you got all of your income and you didn't forget something, and then move on from there. If it's a positive number, then you do have some money that you can work with to accomplish other things, and you can move on to the next steps.
So step 4 is to list all of your financial goals. List everything that you want to accomplish financially, both short-term and long-term, because some of those long-term goals, like saving for retirement, you actually need to start now, even though you're not going to accomplish it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So just brainstorm everything that you want to do. Retiring early, maybe, paying for college for your kids.
If you're replacing cars, buying a boat, any of those kinds of goals, you want to go ahead and have them on there.
Yeah, so just write them down, right, and put a dollar amount next to them. So that you know how much it will take for you to reach those goals. Then when we move on to the next step, step 5, you're going to prioritize those goals and figure out how much of your budget surplus you want to put towards each goal every month. And this is where the fun really starts to happen, because then you can see how much you can actually accomplish in a year. So our budget right now, we've already added our financial goals into our budget, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete them. So here are our savings goals. So normally this is what it would look like. And then we're also working on paying off some debt. That's what that would look like. And we would not do vacations. So I'm going to remove that. And we also probably wouldn't have gifts. Gifts is not the thing that we would put in first. So I'm going to pull that out. All right, just double check. Oh, home decor, we would not have that. We would definitely have maintenance on our cars. But so these...
Oh, that brings up a good point. And as part of the expenses, it's okay if you go ahead and throw in like your regular maintenance for your car.
Like you should do that.
Like, and also your house. Like there's some regular stuff, air filters, those kinds of things. You want to have those as part of your minimum expenses, because if you budget to accomplish some other things, you don't want to be short and can't change your oil. So
what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in what the minimum payments on these things would be normally, because that's what we would normally fill our budget with. It's this $370, right? $370 for the car? Yeah? Joseph?
What? Yeah.
Okay.
And so even with these minimum payments, know that your debts will go down over time. So if that's all you can budget for, that's okay.
So this is what our budget would look like with just the minimum payments on everything, and not really trying to hit our major financial goals beyond retirement and HSAs, because remember, those come out pre-tax, so they're not on our budget.
There are 3 main considerations when you are prioritizing your financial goals: time, financial health, and happiness.
So when it comes to time, you can think about, well, which one absolutely must be done first? So for us, we know that we have a vacation coming up in March, so we're going to want to prioritize socking away the cash that we need for our trip before March. Another issue could be, well, which one is the most urgent? So if we know that we have that trip coming up, but I also have a really bad toothache that's killing me, well, that's far more urgent than saving to go on a vacation. So we will put aside money for me to go to the doctor and perhaps get a tooth extracted or a root canal over saving for that trip.
Next is the financial health of you. So you don't want to start prioritizing trips and things if you don't have an emergency fund per se, or you want to at least split heavily towards getting that emergency fund. If you're not saving for retirement, those are much more important to your financial health. And so that's going to get strong consideration, at least in the beginning, until you have some savings built up.
And then the third consideration would be happiness. So again, we keep using okay, well, maybe you live in an apartment, but you also drive like an older car. It's still functional. It'll still keep going for another 5 years. But so you kind of want a new car, but you also want to be a homeowner. So which one is going to make you happy? Because neither one of those are absolutely essential financial goals. They're life goals that you happen to want to have. And so you might choose to prioritize buying a house because you already own a car that will last you a while. Or you might say, well, I'd prefer to have a newer, safer vehicle over owning my own home. So that is how you prioritize based on happiness.
Step number 6 is adjusting your budget as you go along. Even the best made budget is going to need adjustments as you go along. It takes time to learn things like what your true spending habits are. Like if this is your first budget, you're getting to know yourself as much as you're getting to know how to budget. And then second, things like saving for retirement, big financial goals also take a lot of time. And so you might be adjusting the numbers, saving a little bit more, saving a little bit less, as your path continues.
And so one of the mistakes that a lot of people make when it comes to budgeting is they think that when you set your budget once, especially a year-long budget, they're like, well, I could never budget for a year because my financial situation is always changing. Guess what? An Excel spreadsheet, you just type different numbers in there and it changes too. Your budget, whether it's written or digital, changes with you. It is your spending plan. It's meant to meet your needs, whatever they are at any given point in time. So your annual budget can change. So for example, our annual budget is changing already because Alexis got her driver's license, and when we added her to our insurance, our car insurance doubled. So it went from 100 to 200 a month, but that's still, 50%, 100% increase. How does a 100% increase?
Yeah, it was huge.
Crazy.
When we added her as a learner's permit,
it
she
didn't
was
really
nothing,
change at all.
But
yeah.
she got her real license.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, our initial goal was to try to explain these concepts to you and show you how to implement it in an annual budget at the same time, but that would make this video hella long. So this is going to be part 1. In part 2, we're going to go over the steps again, and then we're going to actually implement it in a budget so you can see it happen right in front of your face. So stay tuned for that video. It should come out on Monday, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more One Big Happy Life, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.